Hey there, history buffs. Let's talk about colonialism, but not the stuff you usually hear about. Did you know about King Leopold II of Belgium? This guy wasn't just some boring monarch. He ran the Congo Free State, his own personal colony, and things got seriously messed up. We're talking forced labor, mutilation, and straight up genocide. It's a dark chapter often glossed over, but we're here to uncover the truth. This story, my friends, is just the tip of the iceberg. European colonialism, often painted as a glorious adventure, was built on violence, exploitation, and the systematic oppression of entire populations. We're going to dive deep into the underbelly of history, exposing the truth that's been hidden for far too long. Buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride. Okay, so picture this. Europe in the 15th century. They're hungry for spices, gold, and basically anything valuable. So they set sail, exploring new lands and encountering diverse cultures. Sounds exciting, right? Well, here's the catch. This exploration quickly turned into a massive land grab. European powers, driven by greed and a sense of superiority, started claiming territories and resources as their own. They justified their actions with this idea that they were somehow more civilized, bringing progress to the uncivilized world. Spoiler alert, that's a load of BS. This mindset, rooted in racism and arrogance, fueled centuries of brutal colonization, leaving scars that are still felt today. Let's be clear. Colonial encounters were anything but peaceful. Imagine being an indigenous person, living your life for centuries, only to have these outsiders show up with guns and a thirst for domination. European powers used their military might to subjugate native populations, forcing them into submission. Countless indigenous people lost their lives resisting colonization, fighting for their land, their culture, their very existence. Those who survived often faced forced labor, displacement from their ancestral lands, and the systematic dismantling of their traditions and beliefs. This wasn't just about conquering land. It was about crushing spirits and erasing entire cultures. Here's the thing about colonialism. It was all about profit. European powers viewed their colonies as cash cows, ripe for exploitation. They plundered natural resources like rubber, diamonds, gold, and spices, shipping them back to Europe to fuel their own economies. This wasn't just about taking resources, it was about controlling them. Colonial powers established systems of forced labor, forcing indigenous people to work in brutal conditions for little or no pay. They created cash crop economies, forcing colonies to grow crops for export, leaving them dependent and vulnerable. This systematic exploitation left a legacy of economic inequality that persists to this day. Section 5. Erasing History. The manipulation of narratives. Now, here's where things get really messed up. The victors write the history books. And guess who won? European powers went to great lengths to control the narrative of colonialism, downplaying their atrocities and exaggerating their so-called achievements. They portrayed themselves as benevolent rulers, bringing civilization and progress to the backward world. This distorted version of history was taught in schools, shaping generations of minds. Indigenous voices were silenced, their stories untold, their perspectives erased. This manipulation of narratives has had a lasting impact, perpetuating harmful stereotypes and obscuring the true legacy of colonialism. Section 6. The Echoes of Colonialism, a Legacy of Inequality. The impact of colonialism didn't magically disappear when the colonial empires crumbled. The echoes of this brutal system are still felt today, shaping the world we live in. Many countries in the global south are still grappling with the legacy of colonial rule, struggling with the consequences of artificial borders, economic exploitation, and political instability. The systematic racism and discrimination that fueled colonialism didn't just vanish, it morphed and adapted, manifesting in systemic inequalities that continue to marginalize and disadvantage people of color around the world. From wealth disparities to limited access to education and healthcare, the shadow of colonialism looms large. Section 7. Beyond the Headlines. Unveiling lesser-known stories. We've talked about the big picture, but it's important to remember that colonialism wasn't just some abstract historical force. It was experienced by real people, each with their own story to tell. There are countless untold stories of resistance, resilience, and the fight for justice. Take the story of Queen Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba, a fierce warrior queen who resisted Portuguese colonialism in 17th century Angola. Or the Mau Mau uprising in Kenya, where indigenous Kenyans fought back against British rule. These stories, often left out of mainstream history books, are crucial to understanding the full impact of colonialism. Section 8. Reclaiming the narrative. Giving voice to the silenced. It's time to set the record straight. We need to move beyond the Eurocentric colonial narrative and create space for the voices that have been silenced for far too long. Indigenous communities are reclaiming their history, sharing their perspectives, and challenging the dominant narratives. It's our responsibility to listen, to learn, and to amplify these voices. We need to support Indigenous artists, writers, and activists who are working tirelessly to preserve their cultures and languages. By centering marginalized voices, we can start to dismantle the harmful legacies of colonialism and work towards a more just and equitable future. Section 9. A call to action. Unlearning and rebuilding. So what can we do? First and foremost, we need to educate ourselves. Read books by Indigenous authors, seek out documentaries and films that center their perspectives, and challenge your own biases and assumptions. Support organizations working to advance Indigenous rights and self-determination. Remember, unlearning colonialism is a lifelong process. It's about questioning everything we thought we knew, challenging the status quo, and actively working to dismantle systems of oppression. By confronting the dark chapters of our past, we can create a future where all voices are heard, all histories are valued, and all people are treated with dignity and respect. Let's get to work.